Hi, and welcome to March 2023 Patreon rewards video. Okay, so this month I actually got some drawing done, and it felt good because this month was the first time in a while that I've actually gotten the desire to draw again. For the last couple of months I've been a little bit burned out, and and what happens is that maybe I don't draw as much. And what happens when I don't draw as much is that it kind of builds up to like this itch where I'm gonna want to do it. And now I'm at that stage where I'm like, I need to draw. I need to draw. Like it's like a like a, it's compulsive, right? So that's good. I really like having that feeling of wanting to do it because then it makes it so that I actually do it. So the tricky part has been what to draw, and the conflict is time, the time to do the thing. What can I do that I can do fairly quickly? But also the other thing is also what is it that I can do that also is meaningful. So there are two little things. Either I am doing something in order to study, which is good, and I'm doing something in order to experiment, which is good, and I'll talk about that. But I'm also looking for something that if I'm going to go in a direction or if I'm going to sketch something, I've also wanted sometimes as often as possible to say something or be meaningful. And one of the things that art is meant for, that it where it reaches its highest form is when art is participatory, right? So and the highest form of that is liturgical art, where you are using the art in order to connect with the entire community that is focused on a higher thing, and then it participates in that thing to help everybody elevate to a higher thing, right? So it unifies because the art is about the thing that all the community connects with, and then it also pushes up and elevates. So hymns, uh, altar pieces, reliquaries, iconography, all that stuff. That it's all a focus that connects, draws together, and then pushes up and elevates. And so okay. So if that's the highest, if you take a thing that is just earth and then give it up to the highest, then that's great. But what if you're just sketching on your sketchbook? And what if you don't have enough time? And what if you doing stuff digitally? And what if you don't have the traditional tools to use so that to me is the conundrum, because I'm not ready to be doing sacred art, and I'm not ready to be doing iconography, and I don't have the skill to be able to paint that sort of thing. So I need to practice. So what's the where can we participate when it's a little bit more secular, or a little bit more day to day? And not that sacred art isn't day to day; it ought to be. You should have sacred art everywhere on your day to day life and participate even in your day to day. However, let's say that in an ideal situation you already have all that stuff, and then you want to also do other things. So what to do, where to go, how do I still have that participatory type art that is meaningful, that is also I'm learning and practicing my own skills, but it has a secondary purpose, and it points in the same direction, but in a secondary way, right? So I've come to the conclusion. I thought about it, and things like Lord of the Rings, like Dune, like fairy tales, like myths, like, and these are things that have been kind of universally subjects of illustration and image making for a while for those very reasons, right? These stories participate in, in if not answering the question, in opening the question about important things, right? So, and so one of the so I was thinking about it, and one of the things that I was thinking about is oh, and the other dilemma was how what if I just want to practice observational drawing, right? And what if I don't want to start creating things from scratch, because that's a lot of work too. I could do that for sure. I could practice coming up with characters and designs and stuff like that, which I am going to be doing. But also at the same time, what if I just want to do observational drawing that isn't just figure drawing? So again, I came back to movies. Like I was like, okay, well, Lord of the Rings would be one of those things, but I don't want to draw Lord of the Rings stuff right now. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the mood for something a little bit more sci-fi. And then I was thinking, okay, so Blade Runner is one. Blade Runner is one because of the questions it asks and the conversation that you can have about the philosophical underlying things. But then I also thought, of course, Dune, because it's one of my all-time favorite books ever, and then the movie is a pretty solid representation of some of the questions and some of the things that it talks about and some of the stuff. So I chose Dune to be my go-to whenever I want to do any observational drawing, and just play, right? Like, I don't want to design anything. I just want to look at something and copy it, or not copy it, but just use it as a bouncing off point or reference, just to do studies. Besides the fact that that movie also has really great cinematography, and it's a work of art in and of itself. And it's interesting because when we're talking about being participatory, that is participatory, right? Like I am actually participating with that art form by copying and by using it as a bouncing off point and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. But also, you know, fairy tales and myths and things like that. Like somebody writes down a fairy tale, and then you draw it. You participate in the making of that. You participated in that art, right? In that fairy tale. So I'm also reading like George MacDonald fairy tales, which are pretty amazing. I didn't realize how amazing his fairy tales are, and they're really deep and a lot of fun. But I'm also thinking also about traditional fairy tales and things like that, and I'll probably be doing stuff like that. But then that requires design and thinking about stuff. And so let me just talk about what I've done, and then I'll show you the very little that I will show you this is where it's coming from. Okay, so this obviously I'm going to be giving you this from the video that I did about when in figure drawing, and the calligraphy and the things to think about and what not to do. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be sending, and Silver patrons will get the actual Photoshop file, so you can see all the layers and then all the and see the drawing itself and that sort of thing. Okay, and then we have this month's postcard. So here it is. So this month's postcard, what I ended up doing was I wanted to experiment with key light. Key light, is that what it's called? I forgot. The idea being that there is a in drawing there are different key value keys, right? And you can draw something that goes straight to black, or you can go, your black will be light gray, and then therefore your lights will be even lighter gray. So it's a different key, right? So what I was trying to do in this is two things. I wanted to make the values of her face at a different key than the background. So I wanted the background to be as dark as it could make it, and I wanted the the key of the face to be very, very light or lighter and not go to black. So that was one of the things that I wanted, that I was experimenting with. I wanted to see what that would be. The other thing that I did was I was trying really, really hard to make sure that the values in the shadows, the shadow values of the background, specifically the background, were as cool as possible. As cool as possible. And I wanted to make the shadows in the figure to be as warm as I possibly could make them. So I wanted the background to be absolutely 100% cool colors, and the light on the face, I wanted it to be cool colors. So the background in it needed to be cool but dark, and I wanted the light on her face to be cool also, as cool colors as possible. And then I wanted any shadows to be as warm as I could make them. And so that's why it looks so weird. And I'm like, this is it? This is what it looks like? Okay, so this is like this weird, it looks weird. I didn't expect this outcome, and I'm not 100% sure if this is what I intended. And I don't know if I succeeded in doing what I thought I was doing, but it's interesting. It's interesting. So this is what came out. Yeah. So that, and I also used ink, colored ink, so that my lines were a little bit more solid and they weren't so shaky. They weren't so nebulous like the last one I did, so that it had a little bit more of a hard edge on things, and it was a little bit more solid. So that's what this was. So that's why, if you think it's a little odd and strange, it's because of that experiment. Like that's what I was doing here. That's what I was thinking when I was doing it. Yeah. So that's why this is okay. And the winner of this this postcard is Heather Ordover. You you're going to be getting this this postcard. Okay, so that's another thing that I've been playing a lot. Like I said, like there's a lot of things in my head, and I've been experimenting and thinking about stuff and trying to play with stuff, and some of it will be weird. Some of it will be weird, and I'll show you what happens because I'm just experimenting a lot. Another thing that I did, like I said, I'm attempting to get to the point where I can probably be able to paint an icon, and it's still one of those things that I really want to do. But one of my biggest weaknesses is painting light. When you paint in watercolor or when you ink, what you tend to do is you tend to put in the blacks and then work toward the light. You leave the light alone. Usually the light of the paper is the white, and then you just kind of add a little bit of mid-tone here and there, and then that's the way that watercolor works. You tend to work mostly on the dark. You tend to just kind of do a mid-tone, and then you just pound on that black, right? Keep going straight to darker until you get the right contrast, right? And then but when you do opaque paint, you can do like watercolor, but it tends to work better if you start with a mid-tone, like say this gray paper, and then you do the black, and then you pull out the white. You paint the white, and then the mid-tone is the foundation, is the gray, right? So you paint white, and you go from white, and you pull out the white. You go from mid-tone to lighter gray to white, and that is tricky for me. Like, I'm not good at doing that. I can go to black because I've been doing it so much in watercolor, but then when I have to paint white, I have a really tough time finding the right balance to go in that direction. So one of the things that I wanted to do was an exercise where I didn't do black at all. Like, I didn't do any black. All I did was white. And so here, you've seen this sketch page before, but what I did is this. This is the experiment. So I took some reference of a guy's face, and then I exaggerated it, because one of the things that I also want to do is just exaggerate, right? I just want to play with shape and exaggerate and not do realistic. I don't want to do realistic. I want to exaggerate and design. So I took this guy's face, I pushed the heck out of it, and then I worked out all the shadow shapes, and then I only did white, and this was done in white Prismacolor. And I like the way it turned out. I thought it was really interesting, but it was all using white, right? Like, it was all about getting to the lightest areas, and I left all the rest of it without adding any darkness. So I thought that was a really fun, interesting experiment, and I liked the way it turned out. And I realized that that white Prismacolor is really easy to use. It's really fun to use. I really like it. And this was also done with Prisma. So Prismacolors are pencils are really, the waxy ones are really fun to use. Okay, so then I decided to continue the experiment. So I did this one, and this one was done. Let me see. No. I think I started with this one first. So this one, well, one of these I did first. I think I did this one, and this one was done with a white gel pen. So I used a white gel pen to do this one. I did the exact same thing as in the last one. This time, instead of a red pencil underdrawing, I used a regular pencil, so you can see the regular pencil drawing here that I didn't quite erase out of the drawing. But so I did the exact same thing. I worked out the shadow patterns, the light and shadow patterns, and then I started adding white with the gel pen, and I've quickly discovered that using that gel pen was extremely difficult. It was far more difficult to do than I would have liked. So, but I thought that the results were interesting, and I liked them. So then I thought, okay, you know what? I have this white ink. Because I have an ink set with a lot of different colors. So I have a white ink, and I'm like, okay, so what if I use white ink? The problem is that the white ink is terrible. It's really, really, really thick. So what I wanted to do, one of the reasons why I went to white ink was because this, when I used the gel pen, the problem with the gel pen is that it's got one thickness, right? The ball is only one thickness, so you could only get one thickness of line, and I wanted to get a variety of line. I wanted to get a thick and thin line. So I was like, you know, the best way to get a thick and thin line is using a crow quill or a dip pen, and so I thought, okay, so if I get a dip pen and ink and and dip it in white ink, I will get exactly what I want, because I get the crow quill finesse with white ink. Well, like I said, the white ink is horrible. It is horrible. It so usually these inks you have to like shake them and loosen up the pigment, because all paint is made of pigment, and the pigment has a medium, and the medium and the pigment need to mix, and sometimes the pigment sets on the bottom of the bottle of the ink, so you have to shake it to like spread out the pigment so that it, but the pigment that is used to make the white ink is thick. I mean, it's thick. You can't, it's hard to use. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should just put water in it, but then would it be white after that? I don't know. Anyway, so I dip my crow quill in the white ink and nothing comes out. Like it's got the ink on it, and then I put the pen down, and nothing is coming out. Nothing is coming out. Like the ink is stuck and it won't come out. And I'm like, oh. Okay, so I go and I'm like, well, what's my other option? My other option is brush, right? Like, so, okay, I'm comfortable inking in brush. So I get my brush, I dip it in the ink, and it's still clumpy, and it won't come out of the freaking brush. Like, what? Like, it's like you make a stroke, and it comes out, but it comes out all thick and chunky, and it doesn't have any of that finesse, and then it immediately needs to be dipped again. So the ink is just horrible. It just doesn't work, and you're putting it in there and putting it in there, and then you're trying. So I'm dipping my brush in water to water it down enough so that it flows, and so you get this crappy. It's not white. It's kind of like just kind of, and you have to go over it again and over it again and over again. And so this is what that's what this is. This is me trying to deal with a chunky, crappy white ink that didn't flow, and it didn't do what I wanted it to, and I eventually used a little bit of gel. You can see there's a little bit of gel pen in here, and I think I put a little gel pen in here somewhere, but that's what came. So I fought the ink in that one. I fought and so that's what this is. Okay, and then I did this one, and this was a disaster. So one of the things that I wanted to do with this was, I'm like, you know what? When it comes to this, like, one of the things that I was struggling with was the face planes, the face of the planes of the face, and I was kind of just making up the planes as I went. And so what I thought was, in this one, what I was going to do is I was going to break all the planes into little pieces. And that's what I did with a pencil. I went in and I just kind of broke up all the little planes into little pieces. And then what I was going to do is that I was just going to every single plane, I would just give it a different edge like that. And I was going to use, I used a gel pen on that. That way, I thought it would be faster and it'll work, and it became this ugly, horrible. It didn't work. It came out really bad. Like it turns out that when I was playing it by ear and just kind of, as I observed, I changed the planes and I worked out the planes. It worked better than if I'm trying to plan out all the planes myself early. The gel pen is just, like I said, it's just one note, and it's really difficult to control. And maybe the drawing was too small, and maybe I should have made a bigger head in order for the gel pen to really work. Maybe that's what I need to do, is just make a bigger drawing. But it's a big drawing. I don't want to draw it. Like, the whole point of sketching is to just sketch in small. But anyway, so I hated this. I didn't like it. So I did it again. And I didn't plan it out this time. I just played it by ear again, and it came out all right. Like it didn't come out. It came out all right. I didn't mind, but I did enjoy doing the exaggeration. So that's what all of these were. These were all experiments in playing with light, which was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed myself quite a bit. And then I watched a video. Oh no! Wait! And then I was I took a I took my daughter to her dance class, and while I was waiting, I decided I was just going to sketch some faces. So I took some of the um, AI generated portraits um, that I had and used them as reference, and then just exaggerated the heck out of them and changed them around the way I kind of wanted to. Added details that weren't in the thing, got rid of details that I didn't like, that sort of thing. But I also used it as just a way to just something to draw from, right? Like as reference, right? And so here's that, and you've seen this barbarian because this is I gave you guys this barbarian, and then you can compare this to the actual image where I changed it around and I just exaggerated it and made it more cartoony. So all of these things are just images that are just really pushed cartoony versions of some portrait references that I had that were pulled out of an AI mind, right? I don't want to say generated because that's not what it does. But yeah, so like and so one of the things that I discovered is that it's super useful for that. Like those images are so useful for like just having something as reference to sketch from as a um, uh, it's just handy, especially if you're like, well, I feel like doing this, and then if you're looking for it in Google and you couldn't find it, just just prompt it. Have something that you in the direction that you kind of want. I wanted like a little bit of a steampunk cowboy kind of thing, and I'm like, okay, that's what I got, and then I'll just draw that and play around with the lights and the shadows and exaggeration and all that stuff, and then just and whatever is all weird and in the I can fix and just do my own thing. So that's what this is. These are just playing around, practice portraits, just and so this is kind of what I'm trying to do a little bit more. Okay, and so here's the first Dune. Oh, there's a hair there. Uh, uh, the first Dune sketch or drawing that I did from the movie. So what is this? And this is only one piece. I actually took a very small chunk of my sketchbook, and I only brought that out because I've been doing a lot of that. And there's the rest of the sketchbook that I did and that I'm doing this month that I didn't do last month. But this is what I did. So I watched a video of this guy saying, this is a really great way to sketch. I'm very excited about sketching. And then I'm like, what's he excited about? Let me click on it and see what he said. And one of the things that he was doing was he said that he was using watercolor and a water brush. Was it a water brush? I don't remember. As a pencil. So he said, okay, so I'm using watercolor as my pencil and the brush as my pencil, and I'm going to just sketch as if it's pencil. It's this pencil sketch with a super fine brush, like a brush that was so fine that that it was like a sharp pencil, like a mechanical pencil. And then what he would do he would take the gray gunk of his palette, what was left over, and then he would use that as the media, as the color. So it would be like this gray, right, like a pencil. And then he would do observational drawings with it. Like, so he would take a portrait or something like that, and then he would just sketch it out with that. And I'm like, that's such a fun idea. I like the idea of that. And so I'm like, okay, so I wanted to do the Dune thing, and so I paused the, I got the Dune movie. I paused the screen to a certain uh, scene, um, and then I did a sketch using only watercolor as if it was a pencil. So you can kind of see some of my line work here, some of that line work. Um, and it's fun, but and the benefit of doing that is that, like a pencil, you could lightly put in, and then you can start darkening it as you go. And especially if you have a fine tip, it does feel like a pencil. The issue that I was having was that the pigment on the brush didn't stay long enough for you to just do enough without having to go back in and dip. And often the because of the fine line, or the fine, because I was using a very fine brush, and it was a water brush. The problem with the fine brush was that it would run out of pigment too quickly, and I would have to be going back and picking up pigment more often, and it would take a long time for the pigment to get on there, and then I would just do like 3 or 4 strokes, and I had to go back and do it again, and it would take longer to pick up the pigment than to be drawing, and it was that to me was a little bit frustrating. um, so I'm trying to I eventually went to directly to ink, and I don't know if that was the best idea, but I'll get to it. So, but this is a scene. This is the this is from the Gum Jabbar scene, and so I did a lot of Gum Jabbar sketches from the Gum Jabbar scene, where Paul and his mother walk into the room with the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit, and this is a very deep um, scene. This is a very important scene in the movie, and this is one of the reasons why I really like this is in the book and in all the movies. This is really like a key moment in the story where Paul Atreides is tested to see if he's a human being or an animal. Now, and this resonates with me in a lot of ways because of the because of the because our culture doesn't really know what the difference between a brute animal and a human animal is, and that's why a lot of people are really afraid of AI generated stuff, because they don't know the difference. They get very afraid, and so this the Gum Jabbar scene is really important about that, and I thought that it was really interesting, and so I picked this image because it has Paul and his mother, and of course Paul and his mother in the movie is very much the Jesus and Mary thing. So I wanted to, so it's kind of a Jesus and Mary moment, where they're getting confronted. This is one of the very first tests. This is kind of like we're in Lent. Catholics are participating in Lent right now, and this is it's the 40 days in the desert for us. And this is one of the things about the 40 days in the desert is that's where Jesus was tempted by the devil with the 3 temptations, and it's a very deep meditative moment that has a lot of lessons in it. The Gum Jabbar scene is like, and I never thought about it until just this second, is similar to the first temptation of the devil to Christ, who says, make these stones into bread. And then he says, man does not live by bread alone. the temptation is for, it's the animal appetite, right? The instinct trumps, controls you. The animal appetites control you, right? Give in to your appetites. It's like that line, that terrible line from Mouse in the Matrix, when he was trying to pimp the woman in red, where she says, when he says, to deny our own instincts is to deny the very thing that makes us human. That was his line. I think it was meant to be a false proposition, and the audience was meant to understand it to be a false proposition because it's coming from a pimp, right? It's coming from the devil. He's called Mouse, but it's kind of, he's being a serpent at that point. By serpent, I also mean wise as serpents, right? Like he's being cunning. The Gum Jabbar scene is where he puts his hand in the box and he experiences excruciating pain. And the idea being that a beast could not keep his hand in the box, right? An animal could not keep its hand in the box. It would immediately pull it out because of instinct and emotion. So it's the same temptation as Christ in the desert, where he says, your instincts, give in to your impulses, give in to your instincts, give in to your base desires, like an animal does. Give in to your emotions, like an animal. Do not think of the higher things. And that's what the being in the pain in the box, right? That's the test that the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother gives to Paul Atreides. So this is them, Paul and Jessica, you know, Jesus and Mary kind of a moment, coming into the room, knowing that she knows that something is happening. She knows that there's going to be a test. He does not. He's just very concerned about what's going on, what's up with this, but she knows what's going to happen. So she's kind of upset about it. She's afraid of what's going to happen. So that's why I picked this image. This is the very first moment before that. And then I pick more, I do more drawings and sketches from that scene. But, and that was just to play, just to have something that was meaningful to me, but also that was just an experiment in different sketching and drawing things. So it plays a dual purpose when I was doing these things. And that is it. Those are the drawings for the month. And this is what I did and why I did it and what I was thinking and that sort of thing. This is a little bit less deep, right? This is just an experiment and playing around and with shapes. And this is a little bit deeper. That's why I wanted to do a little bit deeper, right? Like this is if I'm going to sketch, let's sketch something that means something, right? All right, so that's it. That's the rewards. It's a very long-winded video, as always. And I hope you got something out of it, and I will talk to you next time. All right, bye. So I'm happy to announce that I now have a new drawing lesson called Drafu Guide to Sketching and Gesture Foundations. It's the beginning of the level 2 information that people have been asking me for the drawing website, which will teach you where to start drawing, what to draw when you draw, how to draw from observation, how to draw from imagination, how to draw what you envision, and how to discover what you ought to envision if you don't have anything specific in mind. So if you find any of this interesting, you could follow the link that you see, or you can go to thedrawingwebsite.com, look under level 2, and you'll find a link there.